Good evening, ladies and germs. Welcome to the War Room. Yep, when I do this format right here, that's what it's called. You guys ready to begin? Y'all got your tack vests on? And you got your helmets? You don't? Well, I'll give you a second to get ready. Got 'em? Great. And you got your funds? Well, Fakesagan, I don't own a legally purchased, constitutionally protected firearm for self-defense. Why the hell not? Is you one of them queers, boy? Is you one of them queers? Well, as a matter of fact, I am a homosexual, Fakesagan. That's okay. There's no judgment here on this channel. But I'll tell you what. You take some of that money you're spending on KY jelly, save it up for a few months, get your ass down to the fun store. Get a nice SIG P226 like this. When the police state comes a knocking, you'll be glad you did. Tell them Fakesagan sent you. Now, as members of the War Room, I'm counting on you, my audience, to be careful who you bring into this channel. Don't let any big fat globalist rats see the big board. It's a secret. All right, we ready to call this meeting to order? Let's begin. Now, yesterday, I posted this video right here on YouTube. United we stand, divided we fall. You haven't watched it yet? Why the hell not? Go watch the video, boy. Anyway, though, that was yesterday. Today, Truth Stream Media, the project of Aaron and Melissa Dykes. You might know the name Aaron Dykes. He was on InfoWars. Well, they posted this video right here. Is the agenda a new civil war? And you know what? They said the same thing in their video that I said in my video. Well, we're going to go ahead and watch the same thing said twice anyway. We're going to watch their video. But don't tune out, because after it's done, I'm going to have some commentary for you guys. Let's begin.
Have you guys ever been on the Disney ride, It's a Small World? If not, congratulations, you've maintained a piece of your sanity that some of us will never ever get back again. But for everyone else, you now have first-hand knowledge that repetition is the most basic form of brainwashing and indoctrination that there is. And everywhere you look in the mainstream media right now, it's all about the chaos.
There was chaos and confusion at airports today as President Trump's immigration crackdown took effect.
This capping off a day of confusion, chaos, and protests in several airports across the country.
Effects of President Trump's travel ban continue to sow outrage and chaos at airports across the country.
You had chaos here in LA as well as airports around the country and abroad.
What's very scary to people is the sort of the tendency towards chaos.
We have never faced this before. Purposeful, vindictive chaos.
Or is the chaos just chaos, Aaron?
I think it's just been chaos.
Argued restoring Trump's ban would, quote, unleash chaos again. Immigration chaos. Chaos.
Chaos on the campus of UC Berkeley.
The chaos that we've had the last 2 weeks, and it's hard to believe it's only been 2 weeks.
Chaos.
That's going to be par for the course going forward.
It's going to be complete chaos.
And it isn't just the media. Hollywood is getting in on the action too, promoting revolutions, violence, riots, military coups, and Madonna even told a crowd of thousands of protesters that she thought a lot about blowing up the White House.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
If we were viewing all of these events in a bubble, that'd be one thing. But we're not. We're viewing this in the same world where the same people who are freaking out over a temporary travel ban from 7 primarily Muslim Middle Eastern countries have virtually ignored the fact that President Obama spent the last 8 years bombing people with remote-controlled death machines in those same exact countries, spurring the refugee crisis in the first place. Did you ever see this kind of protest over that?
What started out Saturday as a spontaneous demonstration at JFK.
And it's not even a Muslim ban. As I pointed out in my last video, Trump ever so conspicuously left Saudi Arabia off the list, as well as the United Arab Emirates and Turkey. Why? Because there's a specific path to Persia that's already been laid out a long time ago. This isn't about fighting terror. And while it's hard to feel sorry for people who've been so enamored with granting the state nearly unlimited power that they could just never envision a world where it ends up in the hands of someone they don't like or disagree with, it's almost worse. In fact, I think it is worse to watch supposedly liberty-loving patriots just jump the fence.
Now you have become the very thing you swore to destroy.
Applaud dictatorial use of executive orders they once slammed Obama for signing not even that long ago, with not just a predictable, albeit illogical, well, Obama did it, so why can't Trump? But going above and beyond and actually sending out pictures like this one depicting Jesus Christ guiding Trump's executive order pin. The Kool-Aid these people are drinking is a neurotoxin, just FYI. On top of that, I've seen these same liberty lovers cheer on huge red flags coming out of Trump in recent weeks. And I'm not just talking about the beating of war drums for Iran almost immediately out of the gate. I'm talking about things like this.
The president also threatened federal action to address the violence in Chicago. He tweeted, "If Chicago doesn't fix the horrible carnage going on," he wrote, "I will send in the feds."
And this. You gotta hand it to the system that's orchestrating all of this, because they certainly did sweep a large portion of dissenters back onto the government-loving reservation. And I've seen people go from supposedly libertarian or voluntarist or anarcho-capitalist to full-on state-worshipping apologist fascists in no time flat. When I point out all the blatant hypocrisy, I get sent angry, hateful comments and pictures like this one, to which I respond with pictures like this one. Where did your value system go? It reminds me of Jurassic Park logic. Just because the T-Rex saves you from the Velociraptor does not mean he's your new best friend. The liberty movement's been co-opted, and the system had all the data sucked off of Ron Paul's failed presidential campaigns, and especially the 2012 campaign, with which to do it.
It's the fourth largest site in the world in comments.
As Alt Market's Brandon Smith so succinctly put it back in September, here's why this was a necessary step. Whenever you have a rebellion focused on the inherent ideals of freedom, totalitarian institutions struggle to intervene. It's hard for a tyrant to fight a rebellion based on freedom because the idea is more powerful than any weapon or any form of treachery. No matter how advanced the tyranny is, and no matter how many rebels they imprison or kill, the idea of freedom endures. It reminded me of Braveheart, actually, when I read that. Freedom! Smith continues, the only way to destroy a rebellion like this, a rebellion like the Liberty Movement, is to make it about something other than freedom. Powers that be have to convince that movement to support policies that are destructive to its own ideals. If this can be done, then that rebellion has lost the advantage of principle, the only advantage that really matters. And I'm just saying, when you have people who claim to be awake and against the system crying and singing the national anthem like it's 1984 on steroids, that principle has been lost, okay? So the liberty movement is now the alt-right movement, and the liberal left and alt-right are at each other's throats like little puppets acting out their assigned parts here.
Chaos, chaos, chaos.
Chaos.
The level of hate being spewed back and forth on Twitter feeds and Facebook walls and article comment sections has jumped the shark. People are openly calling for more police state now, martial law. They want civil war. They're calling for civil war on social media like they actually think that's their original idea they just came up with and not an agenda that everyone has been force-fed and currently are being brainwashed and programmed to fulfill.
Chaos.
Chaos.
Chaos. Chaos.
Both online and off, what we're seeing is a manipulated civil unrest unlike any since this channel was started about 6 years ago. And we know it's being funded and organized from the top down. But so many sides are falling for this. It's just, I'm sitting back and I'm watching free-thinking, or people who used to be free-thinking individuals turn into program pawns. Just spouting off the agenda, just repeating it to each other and promoting it. They say chaos, chaos, chaos. and the people are providing it.
Chaos.
Chaos.
It's not a shock now when they say that George Soros, for example, is funding a lot of this stuff. It's not a surprise to anyone when they say that. George Soros has just most recently been tied to the Berkeley riots.
Chaos on the campus of UC Berkeley. Conservative free speech sparking an all out of control liberal riot.
But if you actually look at some of the video coming out of the Berkeley riots, you'll see a group of people dressed in black with black hoods and black face coverings moving through the crowd, together in a row. Those are the people that if you look at who actually smashed up the building, started the fire, these people brought a diesel generator to start a bonfire with. This is the crew that provocateured and turned...
Okay, to be fair, that part right there is bullshit. That diesel generator was powering the municipal light mast that they had set up to illuminate the event. The city brought that in. It was the city's generator. Agent provocateurs dressed in black didn't bring their own generator, but still, they're doing pretty good. Let's keep with it.
Protests that had already been very highly organized and scripted anyways, from a protest to a riot. This is all being provocateured and engineered to keep the majority of everyone on either sides of this thing fighting with each other. And if people just took off their labels for a minute, their political labels, and stepped away from the identity politics and backed up about 50 feet and took a look at what's actually going on here, you will see how completely orchestrated and manipulated and manufactured this unrest is to cause chaos. Why? Because they want to bring order out of it. Have you ever read Webster Tarpley's unauthorized Obama biography? It was published just before Obama was first elected, and if you look at the description, Tarpley writes about how Obama is a community organizer pawn of Wall Street who will keep the nation divided and fighting amongst themselves to prevent any challenge to Wall Street's financial goals. And what we're seeing right now with a president who, again, has filled his cabinet with Goldman Sachs, he's even got House of Rothschild in there. I'm sick of hearing why we're supposed to just overlook that. All these things now we're just supposed to overlook like that's not happening, when it's totally happening and it's completely in your face. This whole thing looks like the next evolution of the same exact agenda that Obama worked so diligently on for the last 8 years. Have you figured out the name of the movie we're watching yet? It's called Divide and Conquer, and it's been in the playbook for a very long time because it tends to work. So right now the agenda is chaos. Chaos, chaos, chaos everywhere. And every time you hear the system toss that word around,
Chaos.
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 Chaos. Chaos.
see it for the manipulation and agenda that it is. It's a program. It's programming to keep us fighting amongst ourselves. This is a ride, and I really hope people look around and recognize the ride for what it is and get off soon.
Okay, so let's be fair. It's not just a rehash of the video that I made. They're not the Trump supporters I am. But they do recognize that the media are the ones rallying people up against one another. They do recognize that this is planned chaos to bring about greater public acceptance of the surveillance state. That's what's going on. Stop signing those petitions, Goyim. Stop trying to label your fellow Americans as terrorists. What's wrong with you? Don't you realize that the next time there's a Democrat president in office, the liberals are going to be signing petitions about you? Use your brain. Anyway, though, there's a couple of things that people seem to have forgotten about. Let's talk about the Cold War. Did anybody ever notice that there was a coincidence between when the Soviet Union collapsed and when we started to see local police agencies transition from milkmen with revolvers to soldiers who dress like this? Coincidental timing, isn't it? But it wasn't a coincidence at all. See, the Pentagon had all this gear They spent your tax dollars on it. Armored personnel carriers, flak vests, AR-15s. They had all this stuff ready to go for a war with the Soviets that never came. They wanted their money back. They weren't going to let that stuff sitting around in a bunch of storehouses and rot. So they decided to sell it to police. Of course, they got the Congress to pass the necessary laws making it legal for them to do that. And that was the rise of the militarized police. But that's not the only thing that changed when the Soviet Union collapsed. Think about the roles of the CIA and NSA, the intelligence services. The NSA's job were to be code breakers. They spied on the Soviets and cracked their codes. Well, now there's no Soviet Union to spy on anymore. So they've turned inward and began spying on you and me, the American people. Ed Snowden caught him doing it. But what about the CIA? What have they been doing ever since the Soviet Union collapsed? Well, remember, they were the hatchet men. The ones who went around seeding coups, sowing political discord in other countries, spreading propaganda clandestinely. Well, now that their old enemies, the Soviets, are gone, what do you think they're doing now? In 2012, the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act legalized the use of propaganda on the American people. The amendment, proposed by Mac Thornberry, Republican from Texas, and Adam Smith, Democrat from Washington, and passed in the House last Friday afternoon, would effectively nullify the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, which explicitly forbids information and psychological operations aimed at influencing U.S. public opinion. Well, that got passed, but that wasn't the end of it. Remember, a version of the NDAA gets passed every year. It's the military budget. In 2013, an amendment tagged on the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2013 would allow for the United States government to create and distribute pro-American propaganda within the country's own borders under the alleged purpose of putting al-Qaeda's attempts at persuading the world against Western ideals on ice. Notice they say alleged purpose. This is very important, because ever since this war on terror began, radical Islam has been a scapegoat to put the screws down on us. Just look at the first increment, the Patriot Act. Who is it landed on the hardest? Radical Islam or you and me? Who's getting their phones tapped? Who's getting their emails read? Who's losing their rights to due process? And then in 2017, under cover of Christmas, Obama establishes controversial anti-propaganda agency. In the final hours before the Christmas holiday weekend, U.S. President Barack Obama on Friday quietly signed the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, into law, and buried within the $619 billion military budget is a controversial provision that establishes a national anti-propaganda center that critics warn could be dangerous for press freedoms. So you got to realize when they talk about an anti-propaganda agency, it's kind of like the term anti-ballistic missile. Well, what's an anti-ballistic missile? It's a fucking ballistic missile. And anti-propaganda is just propaganda. The mainstream media has been weaponized against the American people. And they're sowing the seeds of discord, dividing us to conquer us. It's plain to see if you really look. Now, the media has always been corrupt. They've always been liars. But if you pay attention, they've gotten a lot worse in the last few years, ramping up these emotionally divisive stories, race baiting, gender baiting, doing everything they can to keep us divided and distracted from what the establishment is doing. Don't sign petitions to label your fellow Americans as terrorists. In times like this, we all need to stick together. Remember that we're one country, one America. And the enemy is the globalists. The enemy is their lackey mainstream media. Just be aware that the next time you're watching the mainstream news and some anchor person or pundit is sitting there all pretty and made up, perfect lighting, centered in the frame of the camera, wearing their nice suit. Remember that just out of frame where you can't see, there's a man in black with dark sunglasses and earpiece going like this. Don't call me paranoid. You'd have to be a fool not to realize that we are at that stage, considering these NDAAs that have been passed over the past few years. The intelligence services have taken control of our media, and they're using it against us. Wise up to it. Defend the rights of people that you don't agree with, including Antifa, including Black Lives Matter. And if you're a leftist, then that includes the alt-right